Welcome back. Just hours after threatening to veto a $1.3 trillion spending bill over the lack of border wall funding and the DACA fix and too much spending, the president did sign it into law on Friday. The president says he will never sign a bill like that again.
I say to Congress, I will never sign another bill like this again. I'm not going to do it again. Nobody read it. It's only hours old. Some people don't even know what it is. $1.3 trillion. It's the second largest ever. President Obama signed one that was actually larger, which I'm sure he wasn't too happy with either.
And joining us right now is Senator Lindsey Graham, member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Senate Armed Services Committee, and Senate Budget Committee. Senator, great to have you on the program. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to see you. Let's start off right about this spending bill. Obviously, you and your colleagues have faced a lot of pushback with all of this spending. Did you vote for this bill?
Absolutely. It was an easy vote for me. It's not a perfect bill by any means, but it's $650 billion to our military, who desperately needs the money to rebuild the military. The president promised us, if he got to be commander-in-chief, that he would rebuild our military. This is the strongest down payment on rebuilding the military since Ronald Reagan. The biggest pay raise for our military service members in over a decade. I am enthusiastically supporting this bill from a military point of view.
Well, I understand that. The military has gotten absolutely pummeled by sequestration, yes, and that's absolutely a fact. But did you have to give in to so many other things in order to get the money for the military? Supporting Planned Parenthood, more money on infrastructure, health care, NIH, lots of stuff in here that you otherwise may not have voted for.
Well, there's 51 Republicans and 49 Democrats, and at the end of the day, they have priorities too. Spending money on the NIH, I think, makes sense to me. But as to deficit spending, here's what I would tell the president and anybody else who's listening. We're not in debt because of discretionary spending. We're in debt because Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security are just exploding in cost. At 2/3 of the federal budget is entitlement spending plus interest on the debt. So if you want to get out of debt, let's do entitlement reform. I like this package from a military point of view. It's a lousy way to govern because 4 people write a bill in 2 days, so we need to do better there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The entitlement spending is the problem. When does that become a priority? When do you expect we are, in fact, going to see programs or proposals to rein in the spending on things like Social Security before they go bankrupt?
We need somebody to take the role of Ronald Reagan on the Republican side and challenge the Democrats like Tip O'Neill. They adjusted the age of retirement for Social Security in 1983. It extended the life of Social Security by about 40 years. President Trump, I hope, will look at entitlement reform and make it a priority for the nation. Let
me switch gears, sir, and ask you about John Bolton. H.R.
Sure.
McMaster is out. John Bolton is in as NSA director. Your reaction?
H.R. McMaster served the president well. He helped stop a national security slide under the Obama years. He helped reset the world. President Trump has been a terrific commander-in-chief. John Bolton sees North Korea for the threat they are. 2 weeks ago, he wrote an op-ed piece that the military option should be on the table if diplomacy fails. So when President Trump meets Kim Jong-un, his national security advisor will be with him, and the North Koreans know without a doubt that John Bolton sees their nuclear program as a threat to the United States and will strongly advise the president to use military force if he has to, which means it's less likely we will. When it comes to the Iran deal, John Bolton's been the biggest critic of the Iran deal. It's a terrible deal. So I am very pleased with John Bolton as the national security advisor to President Trump. It's going to make the world safer.
So the date is May 12th. Do you think the president does not renew that Iran deal at this point?
Unless you change the sunset clause, which says the following. In 15 years under this deal, the Iranians can reprocess and enrich uranium without limitation. Basically, over the passage of time, they can march toward a nuclear weapon without having to cheat. What President wants is to say that anytime they get within a year breakout, we will reimpose sanctions. They can't deny inspectors access to military sites where they're doing all their mischief. John Bolton has been dead right about this deal. President Trump's been dead right about this deal. To my European friends, if you don't work with President Trump to get a better deal, he's going to withdraw, and he should.
Wow, that is really fascinating. fascinating. On the meeting with Kim Jong-un, also coincidentally expected in May, what is going to happen at this meeting? Do we believe them that they really want a true meeting? Is this sincere?
I think it's driven by fear of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
That Donald Trump is the first president in my lifetime that's convinced the Chinese and the North Koreans, if I have to use military force to protect the American homeland, I will, and it is a game changer. Here's what I think could happen in North Korea. Now you got John Bolton, who's been very hawkish on North Korea. I think Kim Jong-un is going to have a choice to make that he's never had to make before. Give up your nuclear program to save your regime. If you keep going down the road you're going to wind up losing your regime. And here's what I think Trump can do. He can bring the Korean War to an end. We're still at war. There's an armistice signed, not a peace treaty. Wouldn't it be magical for Donald Trump to negotiate a peace treaty to end the Korean War between North Korea, South Korea, China, and the United States? And one of the benefits of that peace treaty is to have North Korea give up their nuclear program and live on the same terms as South Korea. We have a chance here to change the world, and I give President Trump all the credit in the world for making this possible. And John Bolton being at this meeting is going to reinforce the message that we're serious about bringing about change.
I got to get your take on these tariffs, because what a week it was last week. Markets reacted to the president's moves against China, restrictions on trade and investment, as well as tariffs on top of the aluminum and steel tariffs. Your thoughts?
The aluminum steel tariffs, I think, were too broad. The dumper is China. It's not Canada. It's not Mexico. It's not Europe. The idea that President Trump is going to hold China accountable for dumping, for currency manipulation and intellectual property theft is long overdue. To my friends in agriculture, I know you're concerned because you sell a lot of products to China. But in the manufacturing world, where I live in South Carolina, China has stole market share, not beat us out of it. They manipulate their currency. They steal our intellectual property. They dump commodities into the stream of commerce. And finally, Donald Trump is going to hold them accountable. All we're asking China to do is to stop cheating, and we're going to have to be tough. There's going to be some pain involved, but if President Trump can pull this off and change Chinese mercantile business practices, then we can have free trade. Without China changing their practices, we're never going to have free and fair trade.
All right, stay right there. We have much more with the senator, including his call for a special counsel, a second special counsel, as we look ahead on Sunday Morning Futures. Back with Lindsey Graham after this. Welcome back. We are back with Senator Lindsey Graham. We just heard from Devin Nunes this morning, and we know that you and your colleagues in Judiciary, as well as Devin Nunes' committee, have been stonewalled for months and months. Obviously, Bob Goodlatte and your committee have now subpoenaed the documents in the Hillary Clinton investigation. What do you want to see? I mean, 1.2 million documents is what you've requested. You've only gotten 3,000 of them from the FBI.
Well, I want more information. I want to be able to prove that the FBI investigation of the Clinton email scandal was a sham, that the lead investigator, the lead FBI agent, hated Trump, supportive of Clinton. They whitewashed the email scandal. If you had done what she had done, you'd probably be in jail now. And to hold the FBI accountable for not doing their job correctly, that Comey, I think the fix was in. And when it comes to the dossier that was used by the Department of Justice to get a warrant against Carter Page, it was prepared by a paid informant of the Democratic Party, a foreign agent with ties to Russia. It is completely unverified, and it should never have been used as a basis for a FISA warrant. And I want a special counsel to look at all of this like Mueller's looking at Trump.
Yeah, I mean, they used that dossier as a reason to get the warrant to wiretap, and they didn't tell the FISA judge that, in fact, the Democrats paid for it, that it was a political opponent paying for that dossier.
And here's the question. How much effort did the FBI put into verifying the dossier? I can tell you the answer, none. Steele had worked with the FBI in the past. They took the dossier for face value. They never did anything to verify it. And we can tell you now in March of 2018, it is still unverified. It is a bunch of political garbage fed to Steele by the Russians to embarrass the president. It was used to get a warrant, and every American should be concerned about how the FISA process was abused here. either.
You would think so. At this point, the Michael Horowitz IG report, we're waiting on the IG report. What is it going to tell us?
I think it's going to tell us that the Department of Justice and the FBI ran a lot of stop signs when it comes to the FISA process, that the Clinton email investigation was unprofessionally handled. There was a bias, that the FBI got off track. The Department of Justice used information to get a warrant that was highly unreliable, and they need to reform their business practices. But he can't subpoena people outside the Department of Justice. He has no ability to prosecute people. And I really believe that Mr. Steele may have committed a crime here. He told a British court that he shared the dossier with the world press. He told the FBI he never shared the information with media outlets.
Right.
What I want to know is, did the FBI agents in question, who are outliers in terms of the FBI, did they come up with an insurance policy to help guarantee an outcome of an election? If that's true, if they were even thinking about doing that, that scares me as much as anything Russia's ever done.
Well, that is an incredible abuse of power. Do you think we're going to see any accountability here, Senator?
If we don't, it will be a terrible day for the system. The Department of Justice cannot investigate itself. Yep. You're going to have somebody come in with fresh view of this, has nobody to reward, nobody to punish. The Inspector General is limited institutionally as to what he can do, but I am really intent on having new eyes look at what happened in the Department of Justice and the FBI, because they can't investigate themselves.
So when will we know whether or not we're getting a second special counsel?
I can't believe it's taken this long.
Yeah.
Look what we know. We know that Steele lied about the role he played in handling the dossier. We know that the FBI agent in charge of the Clinton email investigation was a complete political hack. We know that information was whitewashed, and we know that Comey had made a decision to let her off long before he said he did. So there's a political bias here that needs to be looked at, and there's potential crimes. I'm not saying take Lindsey Graham's word for it. I'm saying pick somebody independent of the Department of Justice to do what we're doing in the Mueller case.
Let me go to the Taylor Force Act. You introduced this act. This is obviously important in terms of the Palestinian Authority and what they're doing. Tell us about the Taylor Force Act.
The best way to tell you about the Taylor Force Act is to tell you about Taylor Force. Taylor Force was a West Point graduate. His parents live in South Carolina. He served a tour of duty in Afghanistan and Iraq. He was studying in Israel as a graduate student, went out to dinner one night, came out of the restaurant, stabbed to death by a Palestinian terrorist. The man who stabbed him was killed by the Israeli Defense Forces. The body was sent back to Ramallah in the West Bank. He was welcomed as a hero. His family, the terrorist family, received a lump sum payment from the Palestinian Authority, free benefits, free education for life for his family members. And this bill stops all taxpayer-funded assistance. American tax dollars will no longer be given to the Palestinian Authority until they change their laws rewarding their young people for killing Jews and Americans.
Well, will you be able to say categorically there will be no more payments to terrorists coming out of the Palestinian Authority? Will we even know?
We have two laws in place. If martyr payments are deducted against the aid we already provide, but Taylor Force has suspended all Palestinian Authority aid until they change their laws, enticing their young people to commit acts of terrorism. The Palestinian Authority, as a government entity, pays people to kill Jews and Americans and holds them up to be martyrs. This is probably the biggest change in 20 years in terms of how the American government relates to the Palestinians, and it's long overdue. All
right, we will leave it there. Senator, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Senator Lindsey Graham. So what is next between the U.S. and China? Are we on the verge of a trade war? We'll talk with the White House's top trade policy advisor, Peter Navarro, up next, live right here as we look ahead on Sunday Morning Futures. We'll be right back.